On September 22nd, we got a call from our bridge inspectors. They were doing a snooper inspection on one of our bridges in the Butte area. I wasn't even sure which pair of bridges. I knew they were on the interstate. I happened to be talking to somebody else, and Dave came by and told me, I gotta go to Butte. The inspectors found a gap between the deck and the girders on a snooper inspection, and so I'm gonna go check it out. I said, okay, that's kind of weird. I was thinking snooper inspection, steel girders, meh. Maybe it's just not composite. I don't know. So, like I said, I expected steel girder separation. Dave came back later that afternoon, and he came in to talk to me. And I said, so is it a non-composite bridge? And he goes, no, it was the prestressed girders that were separating from the deck. And I went, what? So needless to say, rather than making him tell the story twice, we went to see my supervisor as well so he could let us know what was going on. As you can see here, we had about a half-inch gap between the girder and the deck. So right here's the back wall, and the connection of the deck to the back wall is here. This is your deck soffit, and this is one of our girders, and here's our half-inch gap right along here. You can see it a little bit better in this picture. We had cracks on more than one between more than one beam in the deck, but this was by far the worst one right here. So they went out and looked at it the next day. He took Drew Seelbacker, FHWA division engineer, with him, and Drew got some video for us.
Oh yeah, wow. This really moves over here.
As you can see right here, that's daylight that you can see coming through. So we had a major disconnect between the back wall and the deck. These were semi-integral abutments. I'm just going to play that again because I really love this video.
Oh yeah, wow. This really moves over here.
So what we found is that the back wall was deteriorating. It was really falling apart. As you can see in this picture, this is one of the worst spots. The soffit was also showing signs of distress. I think this happened probably after the disconnect. All that bouncing has a tendency to cause some problems with your deck. We knew we had problems with this bridge deck. You're looking here at the interface between the approach slab and the deck. So you're seeing holes here where the top of the back wall should be that have been patched. And then of course we had a hole one year that we had to fix not too terribly long ago. So we immediately closed the bridges to all truck traffic because we knew this was a shear failure. We knew it was a problem. We didn't know how bad and how fast it was going to get worse, but we knew we definitely had a problem. So this is our interchange, and this is part of our problem. I-15 and I-90 are together here, and they split at this interchange. The bridges are right here. I-90 goes this way, and I-15 goes this way. So this is a major interchange. So what we ended up doing is closing it to all truck traffic right away as quick as we could. It took a few days to get all the trucks off just because they got confused with the signs and we had to adjust our signs. We used variable message signs, just about everything we could. We were sending everything that was coming from the south, we were sending up north to another interchange, and they were turning around that interchange and then coming back down towards the south to go west. But we were able to do a little bit of reconfiguration of this interchange to allow traffic to flow. So almost right away, we got a contractor on board and started building these additional ramps right here and right here to help bypass the bridges. This is the first time I managed to get out there. They were already starting to build these. I got out there, can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. The issue was found on a Friday. But by Monday or Tuesday, they were already making good progress on these ramps. So we decided to check the crack growth twice daily. One day we had almost 3 feet. Well, we had over 3 feet of growth one day on the cracks on one of the girders. A little bit of difficulty in measuring these cracks because it's pretty subjective. You'd have one inspector go out and say, oh, the crack ends here, and the next inspector would say, no, it doesn't, it ends over here. So this was really difficult to track, but some of them were pretty obvious, and when you've got a 3-foot change, you know it's not the inspectors disagreeing about where the end of that crack is. So we started the process to replace the deck and the back wall. The Bridge Bureau got together and met early in the morning, and then later that afternoon we had a meeting with department heads. Dave and I went and walked in the room for the meeting, and we were expecting, maybe 10 people. There's like 35 people in the room. The department director's there, the deputy director's there. I took one look at Dave and said, what have we done? Fortunately, everybody was very good and very understanding, and we had a lot of people come together to help us with that, with the work that we did. That reconfiguration of the interchange was key to getting the trucks off the bridges. So here's our timeline. I guess it was Thursday we found the gap. The inspectors found the gap. Friday, Bridge Bureau met in the morning. Of course, we're government workers, so we didn't do anything again until Monday. But we had the interchange reconfiguration plan complete when we got the truck traffic detoured around the bridges. Once truck traffic was off the bridges, that deck was still bouncing, but nothing like it was with the trucks on it, and the crack growth stopped. So by Wednesday, we were starting the interchange reconfiguration. I think that's the day I went out. On Friday, no, Friday's the day I went out, because Friday we went and looked at the bridges, and we got back from looking at the bridges, and we got back to the main office in Butte, and our MCS officers, our motor carrier services officers, were asking us about the clearance of the Woodvale interchange bridges. Those were the ones we were detouring trucks up to, making them take the interchange, go under the interstate, come back up the other end, and turn around and go the other way. And so we started looking into our new structure management system to see what the clearance was. Well, these are twin interstate structures, and the clearance difference between the two was 2 feet. That can't be right. Something's not right there. So we tried to get a hold of our inspector that was on duty that day. Our inspectors work 4/10s, so we had them working overtime that Friday. And we couldn't get a hold of him, even though we just talked to him in his office. So we went out to the bridges and we measured as best we could with a laser measure that we had. And we called the main office and we said, here's what we get, add another 6 inches to that. Once the inspectors get out there, they'll give you a better measurement. So we headed back to Helena. We got back in Helena. We stopped and looked at a bridge in Helena that was built around the same time as this one, just to see if it had similar issues, because we don't teach our inspectors to look for these kind of issues. I'm amazed that they found this. I'm glad that they found it, but I'm amazed that they found it, because getting up that close and looking at that interface between the girders and the deck on pre-stressed concrete bridges just isn't that common. So we got done looking at the bridge in Helena. There's nothing wrong with it. It looked great. And we get down, climb down from the abutment, and Dave's phone rings. And he gets on the phone, and I just see him go. I went, the bridges got hit, didn't they? Sure enough, the Woodvale bridges had gotten hit. So we learned the importance of making sure those clearance measurements are correct as well. We had our inspectors out checking interchanges all over the district after that. So we managed to get design thrown together pretty fast. On Monday, October 3rd, we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting in Butte. Then we had the bid opening 2 days later. Friday was a pre-construction conference. Again, we're government workers, so Monday was a holiday, so we didn't do notice to proceed till Tuesday. When we met with the entire group of 35 people that scared the heck out of me, we were talking about a timeline, and we told them that we were hoping to maybe get the new repaired structures open by Christmas. Well, the deputy director jokingly said, "I want them open by Thanksgiving." And we all laughed and said, "Yeah, probably Christmas." Well, we almost made it. We had the eastbound bridge complete and open to traffic just a couple days after Thanksgiving. What we did was we replaced the entire deck and the entire back wall on both structures. The deck was in bad enough shape all the way across that we just took the whole thing off and replaced it. And then the westbound bridge was completed in early December. So from the time we identified the problem to the time we had the bridges fixed and traffic back on them was 77 days. I don't know how we did it that fast. I was impressed with how everybody came together and got everything done. So this is what it looks like. This is what I showed my inspectors at our meeting a couple weeks ago, because we're gonna have to start looking for this. The bridges that we found the issues on were built in 1962 or 64. I can't remember exactly which one. We have a lot of bridges in that era because that was the Interstate era. So first thing we did was check that bridge in Helena, and then Dave went and looked at like 15 other interstate bridges that were built around the same time, had similar designs, didn't find any issues. So we told our chief engineer that, hey, you know, this looks like it's an anomaly. We're not finding it anywhere else. About a month later, we get a call from the Butte inspectors again. They'd found it on another bridge. This is the other bridge. Fortunately, they caught it extremely early. There's no gap yet, but the crack's pretty obvious. So our plan for this one is to drill holes through the deck and the back wall and grout steel dowels in. We're hoping that'll tie the deck and the back wall back together, and we're hoping it'll keep it from getting worse. We're completely at a loss here. We've never seen anything like this before. We are just making things up as we go, hoping that we're going to fix the problem. So I am hoping that if any of you have seen anything like this, you will catch me afterwards, because any help I can get would be wonderful. Back wall deterioration we've also noted is fairly common. I think it's needed to cause that separation. The problem is that it doesn't take much. There's very little here. You can see a little bit of efflorescence coming through, and we've already got separation on this one. You'll also start seeing soffit distress. Once that deck starts moving, you'll see soffit distress. And we also have a little bit worse soffit distress. Once that gap starts to happen, we had reinforcing steel pulling out from underneath the deck. These aren't the stirrups that are pulling up here. This is actually deck reinforcing. And it's pulling the concrete off the reinforcing is what's happening and exposing the steel. The demolition didn't tell us a whole lot. About the only thing that we could really see is that we've got these little triangles of destroyed concrete here. So we knew that the stirrups were yanking out from the bottom of the deck. Other than that, the demolition didn't tell us a whole lot. So what we think happened is that as the back wall deteriorated, we lost that connection between the deck and the back wall. We're getting a lot of cracks right in here on our interstate bridges. It's getting pretty common. In this case, of course, it was much worse. You can see daylight through it. Once we lost that connection, the design of these beams didn't have any steel into the deck for the first 5 feet. They had the shear blocks, and that was part of the design with the girders with the shear blocks at the time. They didn't have any reinforcing steel into the deck for a while, so we were completely dependent on the back wall to hold the deck down right there. As you can see here, there's shear keys here, which we think once this started happening, kind of acted as ramps and made the issue worse. And we don't have steel actually coming up into the deck until about here. This is just a lifting loop here. So we've identified 3 more interstate pairs that have this issue in the beginning stages. 2 of the pairs we're just going to monitor. One of them's due for replacement in 2 years. So that gives us a chance to watch these cracks, see how they grow. Because they're so subjective, we're going to try to send the same inspector out to look at them every time so that we can get a reliable measurement on how fast those cracks are going, because we just have no idea how quick this goes. And we're going to try a fix on the 3rd pair, like I told you. The other pair that we found that has the issue is so early on in the cracks that we don't think we even need to repair it at this point. We're just going to monitor it and see what happens. All of the bridge inspectors have been warned and trained. They had a presentation very similar to this that was focused more on what they need to look for just a couple weeks ago. Like I said, monitoring of the cracks is very subjective. And we haven't figured out a way to tell the inspectors this is what the end of a crack looks like. You know, a lot of times there's a poor interface between the deck and the girders to begin with, and so you can't see cracks because that interface is rough anyway. Again, we have no background information. We have no idea if this has happened anywhere else. The main reason I wanted to do this presentation was to let people know that this is happening, because I've never heard of it before. So we need to let our inspectors know that they need to watch for this kind of stuff.